welcome to another episode of the Revenue Focused Marketer, where we discuss anything and everything related to marketing as well as data. In today's episode, my goal is really to help you guys uncover the hidden gems of 360-degree analytics. That is literally a treasure full of insights. And we have two really important guests with us today, Rahul and Arpit, that are going to be our trusty guides that are going to seriously guide us through this experience of learning more about this topic. They both have a lot of experience in this field, as well as curiosity that has helped them, become experts in this matter. So welcome, Rahul and Arpit.
Thanks, Arshi.
Thanks, Ashish.
It's good to be here.
Awesome. So I'll just give a brief description about both of them. So Rahul is a seasoned professional with over 14 years of experience in business intelligence, data analytics, and data engineering. He specializes in marketing, sales, and fintech. Besides his garden, he's passionate about creating end-to-end data engineering and analytics solutions. Rahul also collaborates very closely with cross-functional teams and business stakeholders to implement self-service analytics and architectures. So I guess you can all tell by now he has had a lot of experience in this field. And to join him, we have our usual in-house expert, that is Arpit, with over 16 years of experience across data analytics, marketing, and digital transformation. Arpit's approach to marketing is grounded in his belief that data should be used to make informed decision-making with a keen focus on data quality and also AI use cases for marketing. He also works with cross-functional teams that includes the marketing, product, as well as analytics team, and works heavily on improving customer experiences. So we'll just dive straight into really learning about today's topic. We keep saying 360-degree analytics, but for a lot of our users out there that are listening in, Rahul, maybe you can help us start off. What does it really mean by 360-degree analytics, and what does it really cover?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about, so it's kind of a panorama button on your mobile phone camera, which, reads through and sees through every image that you point to, and then kind of stitches it back to create a 360-degree view. And it every point or every image becomes a piece of a puzzle, which comes together and create a cohesive narrative. So it's like a storytelling piece, where you weaves together different pieces of threads of information, and it creates a beautiful story, how it flows from a point to another point, and it tells something, it gives some information which is insightful and interesting to the audience. So I mean, it has various flavors. I don't think we have reached 360 maybe. I mean, we call it 360, but it can be maybe 300 degrees or maybe 320 degrees, because there is a lot when it comes to understanding the audience, understanding the landscape, gathering every data touch point that is there outside. We do try, but again, I mean, it's so vast, and the technology landscape is so expanding that it can be overwhelming. So yeah, 360-degree, when I say it start with understanding your audience, where the data is coming from, where the touch points are, understanding how your customer interact with your product, and then working back to gather all that data in a cohesive form that you can collect, and you can report on, you can analyze later on.
Wonderful. And Arpit, maybe you can help us understand, how does this understanding of the audience or the touch points really help with the marketing aspect? Like, how do we really use 360-degree analytics in measuring marketing effectiveness?
Yeah, that's a pretty relevant question. Glad that you asked. So I believe like 360-degree view, if you talk about, is essentially the customer, the entire customer data platform that we're talking here. And for me, marketing effectiveness and tracking along those lines is just one of the use cases that this 360-degree view will enable. And within the marketing effectiveness, there are three things that generally we would like to stitch. One is, who's the user, from where he came from, like which channel, and what did he do. So what's the user action? And your ability to stitch these three together can really solve the puzzle of marketing effectiveness. And then this might sound easy, but it's not. So who is the user? Essentially itself is it's a platform, generally under identity resolution category. So you can imagine, like, the buyer's journey has become very complex, right? And the data sets around those users and customers and prospects, they are siloed across various platforms. An identity can be your email address, it can be your anonymous ID, it could be your lead ID, it could be some customer ID, it could be some of your internal way to track users, right? And each of the systems will have their own way to identify a user. So you need a proper process and system and things in place that can help you identify the user in first place. Now, the second bit is which channels. Which channels drove that user to your website or wherever you're running a promotion? It could be some offline campaign as well. Now, again, this data is siloed, right? In order to achieve that 360-degree, you need to consolidate all the channel level data. It can be ad platforms in form of Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. It could be some of the events that you are attending, like trade shows, conferences, where you are actually inviting the same user. And then finally, the third category, which I mentioned, is what happened and what was the action that user performed. And probably that's most critical one as a data set, because that's what you're trying to understand, what actions user perform in terms of micro conversions and macro conversions. So you got to have a way to really understand the entire funnel. So you need all the leading indicators as well as lagging indicators, right from like a form fill that can happen on your website to the booking uh, that happened in your CRM and everything in between. So long story short, back to basics, you need all those three things: who's the user, which channel he came from, and what action he performed. And you need like a 360-degree view that really enables you to stitch these three things together.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like, it sounded very easy when you started off. Like, we just need three things and we're like, resolved. It's good to go. We can really gain more insights. But the more I understand about this, I realize it's a much more challenging process. And I'm sure, like, there must be some challenges that people face while figuring out their 360 marketing analytics. So are there any particular that sort of, I know you touched upon siloed data in across different platforms and channels. Are there others that you see as challenges?
So like going further into all the channels, for example, let's say we pick SEO as one of the channels. You probably have if you're probably investing on search, you will have 4 or 5 people and some agency who's supporting the whole SEO thing, right? Now, problem is Google certainly is the main search engine where you get 80% of traction, and Google stopped sharing data around keywords, which is like a backbone for any of the search strategy. Now, the data exists in their own platform called Google Search Console, but it is again pretty much siloed in the sense that you hardly have any ability to connect it with the rest of the data sets. So the challenge is to really have um, some connection between the keywords that are driving traffic to your website and whether it is making any impact on the desired user actions. The third bit, whether it's a form fill, whether it's a lead, whether it's a pipeline. So you will have to create some custom solution around that can allow you to stitch that journey. Now, other channel could be your social media channels. Now, social media channels come up with their own ways to report, and there are certain metrics that are very difficult to a particular channel. And across your paid social strategies as well as organic social, you will have to have a clear way to segment data. And also, you need some kind of data harmonization, because it might happen that certain metrics are actually more relevant for paid social versus organic social. So you need to have a well thought process while you are sort of working on your data model, your schema, the way you've designed, in order to get like a clear view whether your social media strategy is working or not. So likewise, each channel we have to go through. And if I pick like offline as one of the channels, especially from B2B perspective, marketers spend a lot of time, energy, and money in attending various events, like let's say you're attending Adobe Summit or you're attending a HubSpot conference, right? It's a huge investment. How can you connect the online and offline marketing and then really create a view that can tell if the combined impact of digital and offline campaigns are actually leading to close one, right? So those are the things that we have to take care of when it comes to 360 review and the use case that we are solving for, which is marketing effectiveness tracking and all.
And
Definitely.
just to add to that, I think many of these channels are now digital. There was a saying from a marketer 100 years ago. You know, we know that half of my marketing tactics are not working, but we don't know which half.
Yeah.
And that saying is still true even in today's age, where we have almost everything digitized. We have connected digital and physical worlds, and still those siloed data and disparate systems make us feel helpless sometimes. So I think it's pretty relevant in today's age. How do we actually go ahead and connect those missing pieces, especially when you talk about challenges with CRM data or marketing automation data. That is another whole a new game altogether. And it starts with I would say it starts with the lead, and goes up to close one. But the the integration with other systems like social media, or it could be paid media, or it could be trade shows, events, and how are we ingesting that data using technology. So there could be challenges like there could be missing pieces of data, or there could be inconsistent data. That is a big problem today. People tend to enter all sort of data in the systems, but each has their own version of how they feel like should be they should be entering the data. For example, country names or state names, they could be all different when somebody else could be using ISO formats, or somebody else would be using full names of the states. Uh, uh, so this is just an example, but I mean there could be n number of versions how somebody can write a single piece of information. So yeah, I mean it could start with as simple as missing data, incorrect data, inconsistent or integration missing, and there are some tactics to handle those kind of situations as well. So for example, um, you know uh, obviously out of the box integrations are one. For example, Marketer and Salesforce obviously do have a great sync, but what about other platforms which do not have? So you kind of have to build out custom integration using their API. I hope they have API, but if not, I mean it might lead to another puzzle, which is either you export the data or you do RPA process where a robot is basically opening up the application, downloading the data, sending it to your the other application to sort of join that. Only if you find a missing, only if you find uh, integration point, for example, a lead or a contact or opportunity or account. And this elevates up to a point where, if you're, let's say, running ABM campaigns, so account can consist of multiple contacts. Sometimes there are even leads with the same account. And how do you really map the touch points that are coming in on, let's say, on a social media ABM campaign back to your CRM or marketing automation system? So you need to carefully assess, which accounts you're mapping to, or are we getting any known contacts? Are we getting any known leads? Well, if not, we might have to create new ones. Otherwise, there should be an integration in place which maps the existing touch points to the existing leads or contacts. And this could happen, across, I would say, whether in the system or outside the main system. I mean, you can do this kind of analysis outside using some of the ETL tools that are available, which could, join the missing pieces. It may not essentially put that back in to the system, but it'll really help to stitch the data across, put it in a kind of a warehouse, a data warehouse where we can report on it and you can see the missing pieces.
I just want to add, like, if you brought in ABM specifically. So one challenge with Salesforce specifically is that you've got leads and you've got contacts, and essentially it represents the user only, right? And lead, generally speaking, becomes your dumping ground for any incoming record of the user. And generally speaking, there's a lot of duplicates as well. And then Salesforce does not offer a direct relationship between your lead data and your account data. And that's where the problem arises, because marketing team is making a lot of efforts to drive leads. And just because there's a process gap in terms of how the whole sales process works, and how you convert lead to a contact and opportunity, there are a lot of times that there are orphan leads, and the sales team really don't care about following the process. So coming back to the whole thing, like, who's the user, which channel it brought, and what user action was performed, that information exists in the orphan lead object, like which campaign that lead was engaged with. Now, since the lead is not connected with the account directly, you've lost that information. There's a massive data leakage. So again, you need some process in place that allows you to do lead to account matching, especially if you're using Salesforce. That is not coming out of the box. So that thing we have to keep in mind. And another topic around challenges, I would say, is the whole the browser restriction thing that is coming up, which means that obviously third-party cookies are no more there, and they're like, at least the latest update from Chrome, it's going down. And the other browser restrictions like Mozilla, for example. So if you coming to a website and there's an anonymous user, so your tools like Google Analytics or Adobe Analytics or Amplitude, you name it, obviously they start with anonymous ID for that user. But if your user come back after, let's say, 7 days, it's a net new user because the browsers delete those cookies. So again, you've missed that identity resolution thing that I was talking initially. So what can we do? There could be some workarounds. There could be methods like fingerprinting, that still give you some level of identity resolution, but you need to have a clear view how you managing the whole user data.
Okay, to further add on, what you talked about, missing piece of information and missing and data leakage. Uh, to some extent, I think some of these platforms also enable, or also are culprit to that. For example, Salesforce, it might not store all the activities for in the entire period. It may store only till 90 days of activity, and beyond that, it'll just purge that data. So, and same with Marketo as well. There are some limits to how much activity data you can retain. So all that user behavior, that is gone. And that is crucial, to understand your audience, understand the touch points. If your sales cycle are longer, maybe, more than a year or so, that piece of information is crucial. And these are like all online channels. If we talk about ATL marketing, which is more like engaging the mass audience using TV or print ads, the challenges are even bigger. You might have to, not every person who sees your ad, is gonna call you or is gonna contact you with a touch point, but they might have some impression on their mind. It's impossible to, gather all that data, but yeah, it's part of the puzzle in the sense, at least it it grows up to a level where they might want to go onto a website and fill out a form, and then it becomes a known piece that you can fit in the puzzle. So yeah, it starts off online, that is a little bit easier, goes to more rough edges where we are uh, your audience is mass audience using ATL marketing. So yeah, it's tough, definitely. And all these rules and regulations, these are really, although it's for the good, obviously, but it's definitely brings up another challenge every year or so, that you have to redesign and rethink your strategies, and rethink your how you're syncing the data across.
Definitely, that's really, you touched upon some great points there. I think now our audience is able to really understand, like, the type of challenges that come across. But for people that are still in the process of implementing and do see the benefits, what would you guys suggest as, like, best practices that can maybe, like, if not, like, remove all the challenges, at least help them, like, miss out from the initial challenges that they might face? Maybe, Rahul,
Maybe
you can
I'll just
start us
start.
off. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can start and maybe Rahul can chime in. So I think even Rahul, you started off with saying that there's no perfect 360-degree, right? And the whole idea of 360-degree itself is broken, in the sense that we'll have to start somewhere, right? And the whole idea of crawl, walk, run can be uh, like visualized when it comes to the overall data maturity. So maybe we start with, let's say, I'm not even saying 300 degree, I'm saying maybe 180 degree or even 90 degree. And just to put this in perspective, it could be, can we stitch, let's say, your CRM data, your behavioral data, and maybe your channel data, those three data sources, so that at least you can connect online and offline together. And then you also know where you're spending and how much you're spending. That could be a great start versus thinking that I have 50 different data sources. Let's create a big data platform and we run a 12-month project. And in the entire 12 months, you're not delivering a single insight. You're not delivering anything that is actionable. So it's always good. And that's how generally we work with our clients is, let's have something in place And then we have an objective of a North Star to have 360-degree view, but what would it look like in first 3 months? And what insights you will get? And what are the use cases we are trying to solve for? So once you're good with the understanding of the use case you're solving for, and then you get an alignment with the stakeholders, your client, like in order to solve those use cases, where does that data exist? What are my priority data sets that I should ingest and then sort of model it and make it more actionable and drive some insights out of it? That could be a good starting point. The other view is the understanding of where you are in your overall data maturity. See, even within the framework of marketing effectiveness, there could be ladders of maturity, right? Maybe you have certain clients that are not even doing platform specific conversion tracking. That is the starting point of any kind of marketing effectiveness. And that's like a base, at least you're telling these signals to the Google AdWords and other platforms that these are the conversion action happening from these campaigns, and so that their machine learning algorithm can kick in and can optimize the campaign. So that's the base level. If once you cross that, then you do cross-platform attribution, right? So you start with a tool, let's say like a GA4, where you have a last touch click attribution, and then you at least have now one view that covers all the channels. Maybe still you're missing cost data for certain channels because GA4 does not integrate everything in one place, but at least the initial conversion action, the leading indicators of form fills and leads. But as you mature more, you sort of build a centralized marketing database and create your own marketing data model that not only brings in all the channel cost data together, but also bring in the different levels of user actions. Call it leading and lagging indicator in terms of how many form fills we got, how many leads were there, are these marketing qualified leads, are these sales qualified leads, are we able to create an opportunity, what kind of pipeline we build, and does that pipeline actually convert it? And each of on those steps, what has been the fallback, and how much time we are actually investing in each of these stages. How can we actually accelerate the whole process? Where are the friction points? So those kind of analysis can be easily done. Now, again, like one thing we touched upon was browser restrictions, right? Now, the whole use case of marketing effectiveness, I'm just harping on the same thing, but you have on one side multi-touch attribution models or the cross channel attribution that fully relies on user level data, right? If you don't have ability to stitch user channels and the target metrics or target action, you can't do multi-touch attribution. And there is always something that you won't be able to track. As long as you're aware and using multi-touch attribution and gaining some insights, and now you want to take it to the next level, there are ways to do it. And the one of the ways that is getting popular is media mix modeling. Although it's an old, pretty old way of measuring the marketing effectiveness, but it is getting more traction now, given even your online digital tracking has some limitations. So instead of connecting all those three things together, in case we are missing the user level data and we are not able to stitch it, can we do some kind of regression and see if we are spending this much across 4-5 channels and we are getting this much of sales, what is the contribution of those channels? And that's what media mix modeling will solve for. And that's how, again, depending upon your maturity, you can really go to that next level. Now, beyond that, I think one thing that is very important is the culture itself. So one of the things that we have seen is that you've invested a lot on all this data, you've got great dashboards, you did multi-touch attribution, you also did media mix modeling. Now your data analyst or your head of analytics is saying that go and cut down on this channel and invest more on this channel because it's not performing. But is the marketing team listening to that recommendation? Are they taking actions? And or they're actually challenging the model itself? And that is very common. Like, you will challenge if it's not really uh, telling you something that you want to listen. See, data will tell its own fact, right? And then it might be good, it might be bad, it might be questionable to your end job, right? So what we need here is a culture, and that culture will come from the top. So while we are taking on big data projects of 360-degree uh, customer view, we need the blessing from either CEO or somebody at C-level that this is company priority, and everyone has to follow. And it is not that at the end of the day you're not taking actions, or you're just taking it as one of the reports.
Yeah, absolutely. And such kind of data first organization culture is the need of the hour. I'll touch upon the other aspect, which is data engineering. And once you understand where your audience is, and we have kind of integrated all those channels through some or the other way, whether APIs or doing RPAs, or some other kind of integration. It is essential to transform the data and do a data validity checks, whether the data that is coming in is reliable, complete, and basically if it's missing anything with respect to the the platform itself is collecting data which is let's say inconsistent, it'll be garbage in, garbage out. So you have to obviously implement on the platform first, the data layer, and then do the data integration, uh, automate the processes so that everything that you do, or everything that you collect comes at a it's in a usable format. And it's you should be employing anomaly detection, you should be employing checking for outliers, simple checks like null check or empty fields, those should be good enough while you're ingesting the data and let's say putting into a data lake or data warehouse. There could be there are many coming to technology landscape, there are many tools and technology available to do that. Widely used open source is Python. There are many implementations like Apache, NiFi, or Kafka, or there are a bunch of other proprietary tools as well. You can there are for simpler tools like Tableau Prep. If you're just pulling in from a couple of sources, you can pull in, do some quality checks, and then transform the data, put it into reporting. You can use tools like Alteryx as well, which have on the ETL side as well as advanced analytics. You can use Nine, which is again open source. Talend, I mean, both have open source and community and paid versions. So after we have collected the data, you have checked for quality, you put it into a data lake or data warehouse. It depends. So data lake is mostly where you put your raw data. So as soon as you pull in the data from the system, you put it in a place where you can store it. And further, you can do ETL operations on top of that to convert it into format where you can actually use it, create insights out of it, and build reports and dashboards out of it. So that is the process, which is kind of a middle layer, and it deals with how you integrate your data across the touch points, how you make it redundant, how you make normalizations to make sure that your data is reportable. And those are the things you'll need to take care when you use that data for the analysis. It could be descriptive analysis, it could be predictive. You might be creating dummy variables out of the data for predictive modeling. So, and for that, you'll have to have that all the data in place in a single row where it touches all the touch points under the same identity. Like you're talking about, Arpit, having the same fingerprint. So yeah, I mean, that's another aspect that I can think of. It's really important after you have identified everything and starting to go to the next step.
And that's really helpful to know. I also had one other question around this. So, I think in today's world, AI is really moving along a lot of things. Within your guys' field, are you seeing any impact that AI is making? Like, I know there are so many things to take care of. So, are there different tools that people can now utilize, or do you think AI hasn't really tapped this area yet?
Yeah, I can maybe start. So I would say within our view of the whole marketing analytics and uh, understanding of user behavior, what customers are doing, and doing any kind of root cause analysis. Like one thing which is very common is that, like, let's say your SEO traffic has come down or certain channel is not performing. So one question that really comes in, why, right? We always want like why it happened. So generally speaking, it takes like weeks to understand like where all is the data. You run a bunch of SQL queries, right? And then analysts come back with some of their analysis and recommendations and whatnot. So I think with AI and especially generative AI coming into picture, what is really happening is that it is getting more democratized. Now, a person who does not know SQL can still talk to the entire marketing database. And there are ways to do that in the sense that just like a simple chat interaction you do with ChatGPT, you simply ask that we are seeing traffic going down by 30%. What are the contributing factors? And then the chatbot will come back with some of its analysis based on whatever data it has access to and really give some overall analysis. And what you really solve there is that maybe it's not 100% perfect, but it is there 60, 70%, or even 80% in some scenarios. So you get a good head start, and on top of it, you can really build your point of view. So I think that's one area where we are seeing a lot of operational efficiency, and it's really helpful in making the whole 360-degree view of that data available to even business users so that they can interact directly and they're not in the mercy of the technical team who has their own bandwidth challenges, their own turnaround time. The other areas which I think which are closer to marketing is, I would say, your ability to grade the incoming leads, especially from B2B marketing perspective. The traditional way of doing is more like you define the rules, and those rules can be biased. That is driven by your own gut feeling. But can we make it more data driven? Can we go back and see what all leads converted in last 2 years and understand through some machine learning algorithms that what were the contributing factors, what were the attributes that are leading to it, and maybe we put that into two buckets. One is all the demographic factors, like what are the industries, what titles, what is the revenue range, what is the company type, what level of like titles within like the personas that we're targeting. And there could be another bucket of factors which are more activity driven, which means how many times the person came to the website, what all content he consumed, the content was at really which level it was. Is it top of the funnel? Is it middle of the funnel? Or of the bottom of the funnel? All these signals will really tell you whether the lead is good or bad. And you get more accurate way to grade leads. And what it really solves is, again, some operational efficiency, because the sales team time is pretty expensive. They always have a bandwidth challenge. So can we give them leads that have likelihood to convert of like in range of, let's say, 70 to 80% versus less than 5%? So those, I think those are a couple of use cases which I believe are closer on the data science and AI side of the house.
Definitely.
And just to build on top of that, even uh, dashboards which are meant for executive are finding a great use case here. You know, I think the traditional approach has been to create some sort of some dashboards, which and a data warehouse which help them to do self-service analytics as well. I think is AI, Gen AI is going to change that, and in a beautiful way, where they won't have to actually deep dive in the ocean of data. They just need to ask their questions in English like language, and they would have their answers. So I think it's getting there. Definitely, many companies are using it, and we are working with a few clients that have started using. We are building that for them, and I think it's going to be a game changer in terms of how easy it is to extract those insights, right off the that haystack of data.
No, I think that was really wonderful and really helpful for us to really understand, the impact that AI and specifically Gen AI can also make on really improving operational efficiency. And I personally know a lot of people within sales that are really as you mentioned, short on the bandwidth aspect. So just being able to procure, do the work for them, and just give them leads that we have more likability of converting would really impact the whole organization in a positive manner. We're at the point in our show where I think we've gained a lot of insights today. So I just want to thank you both for taking the time to do this. Um, I think just to wrap up, I also want to say that we went through a lot of different things today. We've delved into the intricate world of marketing effectiveness and data integration, from panoramic button on a camera starting off. We also kind of mentioned how we want it to be at a 360-degree level, but we're not necessarily there yet. And we even discussed different challenges that are sort of prohibiting us from reaching that 360-degree level. But regardless of the challenges, we were also able to discover certain solutions that are going to help us. I also think from Rahul emphasized on the need for a top-down leadership in robust data engineering process, while shedding light on the role of AI in democratizing data accessibility and enhancing operational efficiency. So these were a lot of different use cases that we were able to really understand. I think when we talk about data, a bigger chunk that always comes out is the whole garbage in, garbage out process. And here, the importance of really getting your foundation right makes a huge difference. I know while working with the teams within the product teams within Dig Growth, we often talk about how this is the first step that we have to data governance, and cleaning that data is such an important aspect. And getting the foundation wrong will not give you the insights that would be actionable or you could really rely upon, right? So I think in today's world, just getting that aspect right, the fact that data is really out there, but making sure it's reliable data, it's something that even marketers and C-level executives can really trust to make that decision upon, is really important. So I think for us to just be able to understand this whole complex landscape today was really effective. And my biggest takeaway is also like things to keep in mind, like such as like the stage of the enterprise and like their data maturity. That plays such a huge role in the steps that they should take, in the practices that they should follow. So I definitely can say here confidently that I learned a lot from today's session. Any last, pieces of advice or takeaways from your guys' end before we wrap up?
I think like for any larger projects around 360-degree view of customer, the end milestone is the organization ability to have a data-driven culture. That will basically determine if we are making any business impact or business value with all those efforts. Like the foundation, we understand like all those 4 5 pillars that you have to have like a good data ingestion and integration process in place. You should have a mechanism to control the data quality, completeness, accuracy. You should have mechanism to model the data the way it can answer the questions that business users have, and then your ability to do the proper visualization as well as activate certain maybe AI and machine learning use cases. All that is great, but at the end of the day, are we taking actions? Are we using the data the way it should be? Or it is just one of the reports that comes to executives' email box every week, every month, and it is just like a dead tree, right? So I think there's some again thinking required, some focus is required, and some direction is required right from the top. Somebody who is sitting at the C level, he should be the one who sort of has to evangelize across the organization. Otherwise, everything is a false promise. So I don't want to end up in a negative note, but it's critical to understand that why we are doing this and is the entire organization mature enough to consume this data and take actions and sort of rinse and repeat the whole process.
Definitely. I think a lot of us, like, in today's world, focus more on the technology and procuring the technology and getting the steps right. But the human aspect, regardless of how much AI, I think, succeeds and processes things further, it's still important for leadership and, like, the people that you employ to really grasp this concept in order for it to move on. Otherwise, it's just another email, like you said, it's another slide deck, another report just sitting in there without really like any value coming out of it. So thank you so much, Arpit. Any last words from you, Rahul?
Oh, I think that was pretty much bang on.
Perfect. So again, thank you so much to both of you and also to the users that tuned in to, listen to this episode. I hope this has been one episode that they really gained from. And I hope to see you guys again and participate in more discussions with you both. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks,
Thank
Oshi. Good to
you.
be here.